All right, join us now here on In the Circle on D1 Softball, powered by 643. He's become a regular on the show. We've had him on every step since he has built this Clemson program from scratch. Clemson now in its seventh season. Of course, I speak of John Rittman, who is, of course, fresh off another NCAA tournament season, making it a Super Regionals, an ACC Championship, and, of course, was on part of the D1 Softball All-Quarter Century top 25 head coaches of this century. And oh yeah, they play in a facility that's considered the best according to the NFCA. We're going to talk about all that with John Rittman now here on In the Circle. That's a lot of accolades here.
Yeah, it's pretty special place at Clemson, and certainly we got a lot to be proud of. So it's been nice. A lot of awards our way, and appreciate it.
Well, let's start with the most recent one. The NFCA announced recently that your stadium it was considered the best field of any in college softball in Division One. Do you know where you were when you found out, and what's kind of your reaction? We've talked about this facility forever, and it now finally gets acknowledged as literally the best stadium in the sport.
Yeah, it's a great honor. Obviously, as coaches, when we started, building the stadium. It was a pretty special day to see it all come to fruition, because when we got hired, we were able to be part of every meeting in the design phase of the facility. So, and then to open it up, our inaugural season, to have sold out crowds, and it's been a great full circle moment to see it being named as, NFCA Stadium of the Year. And our groundskeepers do a great job, making sure that, the field's well taken care of. We got a great facilities and event staff that do a great job. So there's a lot of people that go into the making of this stadium, McWhorter Stadium, and how special it is. So it's a great honor, though, and we're just blessed to be able to play in such a nice stadium.
Yeah, I've talked to many coaches and even fans that have gone to your stadium, and they have all praise for it. I'm curious, as somebody, obviously, you were a part of building it. What's maybe the highest compliment you've gotten, either from a fan, of an opponent's coach, or whoever, about the stadium that it got you to smile a little bit? Because, obviously, like I said, you had a hands-on involvement in building this stadium from scratch. So I'm curious which compliment or comment that you've heard or been told was the one that you really took the most pride in.
Well, I think, from the stadium standpoint, one of the things that we take pride in is that everybody says how nice it is, and how the fans are right on top of the field, and just the facilities, the indoor facility, kind of the concessions, everything really convenient. And so the playing surfaces, nobody's complained about our playing surface. So that's really a nice compliment. But I think what's really nice is we hosted 3 regionals here, and we've hosted a lot of tournaments and a lot of ACC series, and everybody just compliments our fan base, and how neat of an experience it is to play in front of our fans, and just the game day experience. So that's pretty special.
How big has the stadium been in the key role in the success that you've had there, from a recruiting standpoint, from bringing interest, etc.? How big has the stadium been from that standpoint as a tool?
Well, I think it's huge, from a recruiting standpoint, to see the investment that Clemson has in women's athletics, and specifically the softball program. And, I think when you look at the player development areas, the indoor, and how we've structured the bullpens, and, the press box for the media, and then the seating for the fans. We have chairback seats in the stadium, and then we have berm seating accessible to everybody. So, it's just, a lot of thought went into this facility, and, it's already, up for expansion. So, there's a lot of good things that have happened. But I think, from a coach being able to be a part of the design phase, and then watching it all be built in front of your eyes, and then to be able to play in front of sold out crowds has been huge for recruiting and obviously a great experience for our players when they get here.
When you were building this, what was the most important thing that you wanted this stadium, that you felt like, hey, we need to make sure we nail this portion of the stadium?
Well, first it starts with player development. We got to make sure that everything makes sense in regards to how we're going to run practices and kind of the flow of the stadium. And I think we did a great job with the indoor facility and the batting cages and the bullpens and then the playing surface. And then, secondly was, making sure that it was going to be a great stadium for the fans where they could be right on top of the action and things were accessible for the fans to make this a great environment to play in.
What's next for it?
So we're looking at expansion. Obviously, we've, sold out season tickets every year that we've been in existence. So last couple of years we've saved tickets for general admission for fans to be able to attend games that don't have season tickets. So we're looking to expand the berm in the outfield in the next couple of years. We host the ACC tournament in 2027, so that's going to be a big event for our stadium, and so yeah. I mean, it's something that is on the board, and there's different phases of expansion, but phase one would be the berm area.
It's a good problem to have. Like, hey, we need more space to get more people in because there's too much demand. That's a good problem to have.
Yeah, no doubt.
And that's huge about the ACC tournament. I've now I can stop asking you when are you going to host the ACC tournament, because I think I've asked you almost every year, like, hey, when's it going to happen? Now it finally, that's going to be awesome because. I mean, I've seen your regionals. I mean, the atmosphere is amazing. Like, it's one of the best atmospheres in college softball. I'm not just saying this because you're on, but I feel like Clemson has become a bucket list for a softball fan. Just talking, from the feedback we get from our audience, that's a place that people want to go check it out because they've heard so many great things from a bucket list standpoint. And we're starting in softball to get to like we do in college football and basketball, where people are like, hey, I want to go to see certain facilities or certain stadiums to experience it. And I feel like you're on that list.
Yeah. Like I said, we play in a stadium that is really conducive to fan engagement. It's a great environment because our fans make it a great environment. I think our marketing and promotions people do a wonderful job of engaging the fans, and it's a neat environment. It's a great environment to coach in, to play in, for opposing teams to come in and play. And, like I said, we're very blessed and grateful to have the support that we have here, but also the fan base and how supportive they are of our program.
And of course, we got to see you host last year regional, win a regional. You get to the super regionals. You're a win away from the World Series. You win an ACC championship last year up at Boston College. When you reflect now on last year, and I covered you most of the postseason, what comes to your mind when you reflect on last year?
It was just an outstanding year. There was a lot, of expectations on this program the year prior to. We had the core group of players that started the program, and a majority of them graduated in 2024. So last year we didn't really know what to expect. We had some some key returners in the lineup. Maddie Moore, Alex Brown, Abby Vieira, Brooke McCubbin, and then we had some key transfers and some really talented freshmen. So we didn't really know what to expect, and obviously got off to a slow start to the season. Played in two very tough tournaments and didn't have the start we wanted. But what made the year special is how our team continued to grow and continued to work and develop as the season went along. And it was interesting because of the slow start, and how we finished so strong was just a special year. And loved the way our players and team came together, and to put ourselves in a chance to win our first ACC tournament. We won the regular season title in 2021, and then won the tournament last year. It was really a great experience. And then to host another regional, we've hosted 3 regionals in our short existence here, and to win that regional and then advance to the super regional and be literally 60 feet away from going to the World Series against the team that eventually won the national championship was just an awesome experience from, like I said, from how we started the season to how we ended the season. Couldn't be more proud of our coaching staff and our players and just the great run that we had last year.
What did it mean to win that ACC tournament? I remember watching it at a hotel, and it was you and Lonnie at Florida State and Clemson. It was almost like destiny that you two would have to match up. Of course, you would have to match up in the ACC title game. It was a dramatic game. It was a dramatic tournament from your standpoint. You win that. I remember, obviously, our colleague and somebody you know very well, Jenna Becerra, was there to cover the tournament. I mean, just what was that like to win that championship against somebody you know very well in Lonnie, who obviously you go way back with, and to get that championship, and obviously, you would end up with a very high seed as a result of that run. I think you got the 11th seed, as it turns out, but you got to host and pretty much locked that up. If it wasn't already locked up, it certainly locked it up at that point. But what was that like to hoist that trophy?
Yeah, we had, from a tournament standpoint, we've been in existence 6 years. We've played 6 seasons. One of those was COVID, so that got cut short. So we've played 5 full seasons of softball at Clemson, and like I mentioned earlier, we've won a regular season championship in 2021. We won the conference tournament last year, and the way we did it was pretty special. To beat Florida State in the final game, being down a run and then having a 2-run homer, and then in the bottom of the 7th, Florida State gets 2 runners on with nobody out, and we get out of that jam to win the tournament. It was pretty special. Like I said, we've played in 3 championship games in our young career. We lost to Duke 1-0 at in Louisville in 2021, and then we lost to Florida State at Pitt in 2023, and that was kind of a slugfest game. I think the final score was 11-7, if I'm not mistaken. And then to win it last year in our 3rd chance was pretty special. So, like I said, it was an interesting tournament in that we had to come from behind in every game that we played in. We were behind to Virginia, came back and won. We were behind big to Virginia Tech, came back and won. And then we're behind against Florida State until the 7th inning and got a big 2-run homer from Kylie Johnson to put us in the lead. And then to be able to get out of a jam in the 7th just made it even more special.
That's certainly memorable there. I'm curious, from the returners, is there extra fuel, extra motivation from the standpoint how close you were to getting to Oklahoma City? Like you said, it 60 feet away. I covered that super regional. It was dramatic. Might have been the best super regional. By the way, you always seem to be in these dramatic super regionals. By the way, I go back to Oklahoma where you pushed them to the limit, and here at Texas, we got to stop pairing you up with eventual national champions. But is there extra fuel you've noticed from your returners, inspired because man, they were that close, and that's going to drive them now through this fall and into this season for the returners?
Yeah, we have 13 returning players that were on that team, and they're definitely motivated. To be that close and not to make it was pretty heartbreaking, and I think they've kind of have the mindset, and they're kind of on a vision or a mission that they want to get over that hump, and they're doing everything in the power to make sure that this is another successful year, and that like every year we want to win championships and we want to go farther than we did last year. So there's definitely some extra motivation from everybody involved in our program to make it farther this year than we did last year, and that would be the College World Series.
You mentioned you returned 13 players. You got 11 newcomers, so it's about a 50-50 split there. You lose some big pieces. Let's talk about the pieces you lost, because they deserve certainly their shout-out. and what they've meant to your program. Talk about the group that you lost, that senior class, which is one of the more successful ones in Clemson softball.
Yeah, it starts with our pitchers. Last year, Reese Basinger and Brooke McCubbin took a lot of the innings, and both didn't start the season too well, and but both really got better as the season went along. Coach Jameson does a great job with our pitching staff, and I think last year, between Reese Basinger and Brooke McCubbin, and then Macy Centron as a freshman. They just did an outstanding job, and anytime you improve as the season goes along, and I think all three of them complemented each other really well in the circle. They threw a little bit different and were able to keep hitters off balance. And then, we played great defense behind them. And, that started with Maddie Moore at second base and Abby Vieira behind the plate. Tremendous defensive players. And, so they were a big part of it. And then from an offensive standpoint, we had a really good offense last year. I think there was times when we struggled in driving in runs, but we always were in a position to drive in runs, which is a good thing. But we had a pretty dynamic offense, and it was led by Alex Brown, our leadoff hitter, who's a senior last year and played third base, and then Maddie Moore hitting the 2 spot. And then we just those two being seniors were really our biggest offensive threats and kind of led us offensively. So, but yeah, I mean, it was, a team effort, but certainly those seniors were a big part of our success.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be weird not to see Maddie Moore in your lineup there. 71 RBI, 17 homers, 411 average. Alex Brown hit over 400 as well. But that's part of college sports is you have to reload. And so let's start with the offense. Who are some pieces there? It creates opportunities for others to step into those roles. I mean, it wasn't too long ago where I asked you about, hey, who would replace the Valerie Kagels of the world? And you would bring up an Alex Brown and Maddie Moore as, hey, somebody to watch. So who are some players that you so far have impressed you in the fall and could be in the mix there to help you on offense?
Well, I think middle of our lineup, we still have 3 returning players in the middle of the lineup with Julia Noller, who hit in the 3 spot, Macy Centron, who hit in the 4 spot, and Mary Collins, who hit in the 5 spot for us. So all 3 of those players are back. They've got another year of experience under their belt. They're really dynamic offensive players. They can hit for power, hit for average. We have Jamison Brockenbrough, who kind of was our double leadoff in the 9 spot last year. And this fall, she's been our leadoff hitter and just does a great job. She can beat you in many different ways. She can lay down the bunt. She can hit for power. She can hit for average. She's got a lot of speed. So those 2 right there are, really, really good offensive players, in the middle of the lineup and at the top. And then we're looking at Kylie Johnson again as another player who had some huge hits for us last year. She continues to grow as a hitter. And then Taylor Pipkins is another one who had some really big hits for us last year, kind of worked her way into the lineup about 3/4 of the way through the season and then never came out of the lineup. And she's another dynamic player for us that can play multiple positions. Probably see her a little bit more in the infield this year. We have a couple of transfers, Kylie Chanel and Corey Hicks. Kylie Chanel's a middle infielder from Florida Atlantic, and she's just really done a great job this fall for us. And we look for her to probably be our starting shortstop and be a hitter that's, hits for average and can drive in some runs. And then Corey Hicks is another one, a transfer from Oklahoma at catcher. And Corey's going to be a sophomore this year, and she's had some big moments this fall for us. So we're looking for some production out of her. And then we got a really good mix of players that are kind of battling for positions. Maddie Lardizabal, Sam Minish, Ava Wilson, Kennedy Ariel are all players that, are really close to breaking into the lineup. And a couple of them have had stints in the lineup. And so, There's still a few positions that we're trying to figure out, and a few people that are battling for those positions. And then we have a really good freshman class. We have a bunch of freshmen, starting with catcher Sophia Burmeister. She's pushing for playing time behind the plate. She's battling Corey Hicks. And then we have, from a pitching standpoint, we have Lexi Hames and Kiera Crosby, who are really had good falls pitching for us, and look to be in the mix to be in the circle. And then Mac Pavesi is another freshman that has really stood out for us, playing first base, playing the outfielder. She's a really good hitter. She can hit to all fields, and we're looking for big things from Mac Pavesi. And then another pitcher that's really done well for us in the fall is Sierra Manis, a transfer from USC Upstate. And then Abby Dunning. I mean, she's somebody who we brought in from the transfer portal. We're very familiar with from Boston College, and so I think when you look at the additions to our program, I think we've done a great job of trying to fill the holes that McCubbin, Basinger, Alex Brown, Maddie Moore, and Abby Beer left, and I think we've done a pretty good job. And a lot of competition at position, a lot of depth, a lot of versatility. So looking for a lot of great things from this team this year.
That's right. By the way, you now know the podcast format down pat. You nailed the pitching staff. You broke it down. I didn't like you set yourself up beautifully. I mean, it's awesome. I'm loving that. And I do want to touch on the pitching staff because Coach Jameson, I want to acknowledge, was named the D1 Softball Assistant Coach of the Year for the job he did with the pitching staff. Talk about his value in developing the pitchers, because that's what you had to do. Last year, I remember everybody asked, how is the pitching going to be without Valerie Cagle and some of the other arms you lost? And, you're going to get probably similar questions between now and February, but you guys are very good at developing pitchers, whether it be from freshmen or transfers. What's the key?
Well, I think Coach Jameson develops a great relationship with his pitching staff, first of all. And then, secondly, he knows how to teach pitching. He's pitched at a high level. He's won a world championship for Canada. He's coached at a high level. He's got the experience, and but I think it starts first with developing relationships with the pitching staff, and then working with their individual strengths, and not trying to overhaul every pitcher, but trying to improve them without changing them a lot. And but he's really big on developing a third pitch. A lot of pitchers come in and they say they have 4 or 5 pitches, and really they have 1 or 2. And one of his biggest philosophies is we got to have 3 pitches, and one of them has to be a changeup. So he does a really good job at developing their skill set to make sure they can change speeds and hit spots. And then he calls a great game. So, it's a really deserving honor that Division I softball honored him last year as a pitching coach of the year. Very deserving.
No doubt about it. Of course, one of them being arms is Macy Cintron. What have you seen from her, and how do you envision her year? Of course, you used her both as a pitcher and in her bat. Very valuable. I would imagine you're obviously that won't change. Nothing new. But what do you have seen from her this fall? What can we expect from her?
Yeah, I mean, we want to see Macy grow as a pitcher. I think last year she was more of a thrower and trying to figure some things out. And we protected her innings a little bit throughout the year, but she came in some huge spots for us. And we're just looking for her to continue to grow and become stronger and become more of a pitcher, where she can change speeds and hit spots a little bit better, have a little bit more body awareness in the pitching circle, but also looking for her to continue to be a two-way player. I mean, she's such a dynamic hitter and hits for power, and she's really a leader in our program. She brings a lot of vocal leadership, and she's a key ingredient to our success.
Do you envision her possibly being a starter in the pitching? I know you used her a lot as a reliever, or is that sort of to be determined with your staffs? Because I know you like to use them in various roles.
Yes, to be determined. Right now, we have a pitching staff, and the way they've been pitching this fall, there's a lot of talent, and and they complement each other well. But I wouldn't doubt to see Macy be a starting pitcher, and I wouldn't, hesitate to see her in some type of relief role, whether it's middle relief or long relief or closing. We have a lot of options with the pitching staff, and as fast pitch softball develops and the hitters keep getting better, and it's important that you have a pitching staff, and I think that's one thing that we've tried to do here is develop pitchers and develop a staff so we're not relying on just one or two pitchers.
How do you compare her development at where she's at right now to where Valerie Cagle was during the same time frame? Of course, Valerie Cagle, one of the best players ever, in fact, was on the D1 softball's top 25 two-way players list for best players, two-way players this century. So that's a high bar. I understand that, but how would you compare their development at this stage?
Yeah, Valerie came into a different program. We were a brand new program, so she got thrown in the fire right away. She had no choice, and she was starting pitcher, and hitting the middle of lineup, and obviously a very talented player. And Macy, had I guess probably a little bit different start in the fact that she wasn't thrown in the fire right away and had to be a starter. She could learn behind Reese and Brooke McCubbin and kind of, like I said, have her innings protected a little bit more. And but yeah, but Macy is a tremendous talent. The sky's the limit for her, and she works extremely hard. She's a great teammate and a big leader for us.
Of course, you were honored as well. You were on the list for D1 softball all-quarter century top 25 head coaching list. You were right there with Jessica Allister and Lonnie Alameda, just to name a couple of the names there that, what. How are you a different coach now at Clemson than you were when you were at Stanford?
Oh, you learn a lot the longer you coach. You learn from your experiences, and you understand that coaching is more than just wins and losses. It's about developing relationships. It's about working alongside great people and working towards a common goal. And I've just been very blessed over my career to have really good coaches that work with me, very supportive administrators, and then great players. You don't win without great players. And but I've never looked at coaching as a job. I've always loved what I do. I enjoy the practice part of it. I enjoy even the recruiting part. The game has changed a lot in the 37 years that I've been coaching. And I think I prided myself on being a lifelong learner and continuing to have a growth mindset with all the changes that happen. And I think nowadays I'm really I'm more probably uh, appreciative of the relationship part of coaching that you have with your staff and players. And maybe in the earlier days when you're trying to prove yourself, it's a little bit more about the wins, and now it's just a little bit about building that strong culture and instilling the values in your players and watching them develop, and really about the foundation that we built here at Clemson, and being able to work at a place you love to work at, surrounded by great people, and then have success. So it's a combination of a lot of things, but I'm really appreciative and grateful of the opportunity to still be coaching softball at my age, and to still have an energy and a passion for it. And so, like I said, I'm very blessed to be at a school like Clemson, to be surrounded by great people, and I love coming to work every day. So I don't look at it as a job, and that's probably why I'm still coaching after all these years.
You're developing a nice coaching tree too. Like, I mean, I mentioned some names there, but what's that like, developing coaches across the board that have had impact? It seems now every year now we see somebody get a new job and they're like, oh, hey, that person's connected to you. What's that like for you to have help people advance in their careers?
Yeah, it's a great feeling, and then in turn, those coaches have helped develop me, as well, and I think it's special, to know as a head coach. I started working alongside Lonnie Alameda, and then Trisha Ford was, she was a coach with me for a lot of years at Stanford, and it come full circle because Emma Ford's going to be going to be a freshman in our program next year. So I watched, Emma, Tricia coached with me when she had Emma as a baby, and have watched her grown up. So that's a pretty cool moment. We're going to be able to stay connected and be able to coach Emma. That's going to be an awesome experience for me. I know that. And then, Coach Allister, who coached with me, and obviously, I recruited her and she played for me. And so see all these coaches have success. It's pretty special, and very happy for all them. But I think it was a mutual benefit. I think they helped me a lot as well.
The Emma story is wild to me. That's where did time go? What you're going to be playing? That's unbelievable. On that, I remember we last spoke last year was right leading up to your series going up back to Stanford in that 3-game series. It was talked about. What was it like to be around some of the alums? Ramona Shelbourne was there, among others. What was that like in getting that welcome from your former players there in a place you know very well?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a different situation, to go back to a place that you coached at for 18 years. And, and it was a really important series, 2 really good teams going at it. And, but Coach Allister, and, she's like family to me, and to be able to go back and, see and experience, what she's built there. And, to see there was a lot of alumni that came back, and just very grateful for that opportunity to see a lot of my former players, and to spend some time with them. And a lot of them brought their families out and kids. And so it was really a neat experience. And then to see a lot of people that I worked with, some coaches that came out to see me, and some friends. And so it was a really special weekend, and had a lot of fun. And just it was one of those moments in your career where you kind of reflect, and it was a great awesome opportunity, and a great reflection time for me. And I really enjoyed it.
Got to play at a football stadium.
Yeah,
A little different.
definitely. Yeah, it was a different experience, and they did a great job of, for that being a temporary stadium. I thought they did an outstanding job of, providing that opportunity for their players.
It's unique in that obviously you were part of this unique ACC where you got to play both Stanford and Cal. You hosted Cal. You went to Stanford. Both of them in the league, helping you get 9 bids for the ACC, number 2 conference in college softball. How do you feel about this new now look ACC?
Yeah, it's a really tough conference. I think we have some great coaches in the league. I think, there's an awful lot of talent in our league. I think last year, obviously adding Cal and Stanford definitely helped the RPI, which in turn helps your postseason opportunities. But I've always said this league is strong top to bottom. And, certainly if you look at the bottom 4 or 5 teams, they're all right there. And, you have to bring your A game every week in this conference to win series. And, I think this year is going to be, no different. I think there's been a lot of growth in our conference in the last 7 years. There's a lot of great coaches and a lot of great players, and very tough league. And last year was evident of that fact that, we got so many teams to postseason.
A lot's made of the travel. You got to travel out west. You won your series out west. Is it a big deal, little deal, overblown? What do you make of the whole travel? Because that's what some people on the outside bring up. They always bring it up in the other sports. Is it that big of a deal?
In our sport, I think we had to go out there once. I think Cal and Stanford have to come east 2 or 3 times. So it is what you make of it. I mean, certainly it's not an ideal situation to be traveling, from Eastern Standard Time to Pacific Standard Time. So that 3-hour time difference is a little bit to deal with. I think you got to schedule around. You got to be careful scheduling around those trips. So if you're going out west, you're going out east, you got to make sure that you're giving your team time to rest and recover properly to go into your next set of games. But it's a sign of the times, Eric. We're not changing it, so you just got to learn to cope with it and deal with it the best you can, and not let it become an excuse. You both teams got to do it, and at some point, everybody in our league's got to do it. So you got to take that mindset that you got to go play softball, and that's what we're there to do, and you adjust and adapt accordingly.
The fact that you've had so much experience coaching out west with all your years of experience coaching out, does that help you in that process, getting your teams ready when you travel, or no?
I just think, all coaches, you've been, if you travel, whether it's bus or by plane or by van, travel's travel. You just learn to, like I said, you learn to deal with it. You plan and prepare the best you can, and you try to give your team the best opportunity to win. So you want to do it smart as you possibly can, but at the same time, everybody's got to travel and everybody's got to do it. So you go play the game, and like you said, you try to give them as much rest and recovery and as much preparation time as you can. But at the end of the day, you're playing softball, and when the first pitch happens, you're all about winning, and that's kind of the outlook we've had.
Couple last things. This year, the committee announced this upcoming year, the tournament, they will seed 32 teams versus 16. They'll go 32 seeds. Your reaction to that, and the going to 32 seeds, do you like it? What's your overall reaction to that?
Yeah, I think it's huge. I think it's been a long time coming. I think it's when you look at, you work all season long to get a seed, and then I just think it's important. I think it's fair for everybody. It's not necessarily based on your proximity to other teams and travel. I know there's still a pretty big component that's involved with travel and how they seed it, but I think you're going to have a much more balanced tournament, and I think it's very fair.
I agree with you. It's a positive step, right? It's kind of annoying when you're going to a selection show. You kind of already know where you're going, right? Like it's
right.
Kind of now it should be what's decided on the field, and you shouldn't have geography impact where you're going or seated. And I know there's still an element of that, but it's better this way, I think, than a lot of people. And I would imagine it's a positive step for the sport overall, right?
No doubt, positive step in the sport. And I think I know our committee works awfully hard at postseason, and I think it's going to make their job a little easier as well.
No doubt. Last thing before we let you go, as you kind of continue through the fall, and then the season will get underway. You'll have another tough schedule. Spoiler. What is going to be some things you're looking forward to finding out about this group as together as a team that you think will help determine and kind of define the Clemson Tigers in 2026?
Yeah, I think, we've mentioned this. It starts in the circle. I think we have a really good pitching staff. I want to see how they come together. Secondly, I think we've improved defensively as a team. I know we've worked extremely hard on it. Coach Crash does a great job working with our defense, and like I said, I think we've improved defensively. I know we're going to miss some key players. But I think our young players and our transfers have kind of filled those holes nicely. We got Coach Rittman, who works with our hitters, and I think we got some really dynamic offensive players. So I think early on it's about how we handle the toughness of our schedule, and then it's about when you start getting into hosting home tournaments and then ACC play, it's about winning series and competing and coming together as a team. And one of the things that you want to do is you want to peak at the right time. And I think from our standpoint as a coaching staff, we want to get better every week. We want to improve as the season goes along, and those are really our main objectives this year. Is we don't try to look at the outcome so much as we look at the process. And if we take care of the day-to-day process, I think we're going to have a great journey this year.
That is Clemson head coach John Rittman joining us here on In the Circle, a D1 softball coach. Always a pleasure to catch up with our annual pod and get together. It's always a blast to catch up with you. Hopefully we'll cross paths during the season, but in the meantime, Thanks for always coming on. Congrats on all the success and the accolades there for your stadium facilities and your staff. It's pretty awesome what you've been building there, and it's been an honor to kind of follow your program from scratch and every year. So thanks for always taking the time to talk to us.
Hey, Eric, thank you, and thank you for having me on. We truly appreciate the coverage and what you do for our sports. So, have a good one, and hopefully our paths cross soon.